All right, gang, I am back with the TriStar Supply LLC.com. I got it right that time. Holzfforma G660. I have ported this up. I ported it up last year. There was some problems and I've yet to fix them. I'm probably not going to this year. I had caused a big score in the cylinder, and I think I'm losing a lot of power from that. But regardless, it is what it is. It runs great. I haven't fired this thing off at all since I think February this year, which is, you know, what is it? Like 8 months ago, something like that. Is that right? Something. But anyways, it may have been December of last year. I'm not 100% certain. But we're gonna fire it off now, make sure it still runs good. We're gonna put it in this big white oak and just see how she cuts. Might have to do a little bit of tuning, but probably not. Last time I ran it was a day similar to this. Let's see what she's got. Ooh. Come on. Pull fuel. Let's go. Get the oil flowing. Well, she still cuts good, but I want to show you something I just noticed. I'm still running the compression release on this saw. You see that? See that oil? If you're smart, you know that that means I'm going to go in there and I'm going to pull that compression release and plug it up. Yeah, because these things, it's still got the made in China compression release in it, and clearly it's leaking. So we'll pop that out, put a plug in it. And you know, originally I left it in because I knew this was going to be a high compression large, you know, I think it's what are these, 92 cc's. So I wanted to keep that compression release. However, I just tried it whenever I was trying to start it, get it to prime fuel, and the compression release popped the first time that I pulled it, so it's useless anyways. So I'll ditch that and get it going. But we will see how this thing compares to my Holzfforma 395 XP that was ported by Richard Flagg, as well as the 592. You know, we'll compare the two in this big old wood like this. There's no better test for a big saw, you know, than big wood. It is running a 7-pin sprocket, and it's the same bar and chain setup that I had on the other two saws. I will say that I went ahead and I sharpened the chain again, but it was the exact same formula I used before, so it shouldn't be any different. Same person sharpening, same grinder, same everything. I just felt like, you know, let's give it a fresh sharpen, because this is, it just doesn't come too much harder. You know, this is white oak that has been, it fell, I don't know, almost 2 years ago, you know, and it's been up drying out. And so it's not dry, you can't make furniture with it or anything, but it's not like it's fresh cut down. So it's hard. It's hard. So that means it's hard on your chain too. And I just figured I'll go ahead and just do a little freshen up on it. But I will say this right off the bat, I mean, this thing, you know, it was struggling. The 395 XP, nope, no struggle whatsoever. The ported one from Richard Flagg, and it's not a Holzfforma, it's a Holzfforma as well. So I think that the 395 Blue Thunder is still going to beat it, which brings me to something that I've been really kind of mulling over here lately. And you know, these things are cool saws, right? But Scott, you had thought that it was silly that this wasn't on my list of top 5 saws for beginning porters, right? And he was like, that's silly, right? I get it. You know, these things have been around, the clones have been around for years now, probably a decade or more maybe, you know? So they're very popular. But I've done a lot to this saw. Now, I did make some mistakes, granted, but the carburetor's been modified, it's slightly bored out, and the butterflies are cleaned up and everything. I'm running the air filter that's on it, it's foam, but all it is just a thin foam layer. If you guys want to know what I did to this saw, just look into my channel, you know, the G660 novice lumberjack, and you'll find a playlist for it, I believe. But I did a lot to it. I really worked hard on this saw. And Richard, I mean, he didn't port that 395 any different than I would have. Heck, I probably would have called him and said, hey man, what are your numbers? What do you do to the 395s? And he would have given it to me, right? And now he might be a better porter than me. He might be a worse porter than me. I don't care. Point is he did a basic port job to that 395 and it frickin' cooks. I mean, it is so good. And I have heard that from other people, you know, that as far as the big saws go, the 395 is extremely difficult to beat. It's just good. And what that is I think, a better designed saw. This thing is quirky with the intake because the carburetor's not big enough, right? And even the size of the carburetor, whenever it goes into the intake throttles it down and gets smaller. And then so you have all kinds of issues if you machine this, and then the floor of the intake is going to be too low, and the saw doesn't have snap and all that jazz, so you have to JB weld the bottom of the intake. There's a lot of stuff going on. Now, there are guys that have figured them out, no doubt. I don't want to, you know, guys that have figured them out. However, these things, to get excellent performance out of them, you really got to know what you're doing. Whereas like that 395, I think that it would respond extremely well to, you know, a beginning porter. Whereas this one, it's easy to F it up. You got 81 on the intake, and now you have no throttle response, it's doggy, things like that, right? So that's why I don't have it on my top 5 list. And the 395 is not there either, because I think beginning porters need to start out with smaller shit. Like even me, I've got a lathe. I don't have a mandrel set up for this big of a cylinder. You know, this is, I think it's 54 or 56 millimeters, something like that. I don't know, it's big, it's huge. And so, you know, it's a lot easier to start out with the smaller saws. So that's why with my top 5 list, the biggest saw there was a 372, which has a 50 millimeter bore. Anyways, it was more about what saw is out there that's going to bring a beginning porter immediate, good, easy results. That's what my top 5 list focused on. And that's why these ain't on there, because they're a little finicky. There's little things that you got to know about them. You just can't go in there and throw a standard port job on it and expect it to perform well. At least that's my personal experience, all right? But whatever the case, it is clearly running well, really pulling nice. But is it going to be able to compete with Blue Thunder? I don't know. Blue Thunder, that thing tight. And whenever it was coming in, you know, with the larger portion of this wood, I was really able to bear down on it and get a good clean, just pull. You feel it pull in the chain. So I had mentioned before in an earlier video that it felt like the 660 had more torque and the 395 had more RPM. Well, I was corrected by Gary Buxton. The reason it feels that way is because the 395 has more torque and therefore can carry its higher RPM. Makes sense. So anyways, great saw no matter what. And if you're a steel guy looking to play around with one of these Chinese clones, I would not steer you away from one of these things. I just, you know, for beginning porters, are they the best? I don't know. They're kind of quirky, and you gotta, well, the worst thing about it is that carburetor's just not big enough, in my opinion, you know, and that is what causes the problems with the, if your intake is too low, if you've got too much intake duration, it's just, you've got a big crankcase and you can't quite fill it fast enough. I think that's what's going on. You got a little intake boot. I mean, the intake boot is smaller than the carburetor itself. And so it pinches down. Very rarely do you see that. You should be able to look through your carburetor and it's a straight shot down into the cylinder. But with this thing, you can shine a flashlight and open up the throttle on your carburetor and look, and you can see the intake is smaller than the carburetor itself. That's a problem, all right? And so it takes advanced techniques to get around that, all right? Anyways, that's enough for this video. I hope you liked it. If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe. Okay, so I checked the footage. That was just too big of a discrepancy. There must be a huge difference in the chain, or perhaps the wood keeps getting harder and harder. I don't know, but so I went ahead, fueled this thing up through that bar and chain on here, and we're gonna give it a run and see how close they really are. Vibration. Sorry, it's a better saw. I don't think he even did a timing advance to this. I'm not sure, but I mean, I don't even have to look at the footage. That just murdered it. So, yeah, I mean, of course, you could call into question the port job that I did on the 660. Of course. It was my first time ever doing one, and I openly told you, I mean, I made some mistakes. But damn, that thing is just so much better. Whenever I had the 660 up here, just revving it and letting it run and letting it fast idle and stuff to get some oil flowing on that chain, it was about ready to vibrate off the log. And so I stood here and I held it like this because it was vibrating so much. This damn thing, yeah, I just think it's a better saw. But anyways, this is about a speed test and which one has more power in this big oak. I know right off the bat, this is your winner.